Say that Alexander Graham Bell should be inducted into the Hall of Fame because not only did he revolutionize life for both the deaf and hearing community through his inventions, but also significantly impacted how we perceive communication today, internationally and commercially. So who was Alexander Graham Bell? Alexander Graham Bell was born in Edinburgh, Scotland on March 3rd, 1847, to parents Melville Bell, who worked as a phonetician, so someone who works with audios and sounds, and his mother Eliza Grace Bell, who was born deaf. As a result of his childhood, Bell focused on audiology in many of his careers and eventually taught as a teacher to the deaf at the Boston School for Deaf Mutes and worked as an inventor and scientist, which eventually led him to build his two most popular and life-changing inventions, the microphone and the telephone. One of the cultural impacts that Alexander Graham Bell had was transforming communication as we know it today. Bell's invention of the telephone revolutionized communication by making it easier to communicate with individuals, regardless of distance between two speakers. By shifting the way we communicate, letters commonly used to send out messages to individuals who are further away or any type of important information was slowly discarded over time as telephones became more accessible and easier to use compared to traditional letters. As a result, society shifted to telecommunications, which impacted how messages were received and sent throughout the world after the 19th century. Economic impact of Alexander Graham Bell: increase in national and international business. With an increased communications globally throughout America, businesses soon began to communicate with others without distance being ever a concern. As a result of the laissez-faire policy and the growth of telephones during the Industrial Revolution, many businesses started integrating ideas nationally and internationally by communicating and spreading ideas between each other or efficiently securing trade offers. The integration of business practices throughout the country and the world stimulated the economy as businesses conducted trade and other affairs efficiently and more often, leading to a considerable economic boom during the 19th century. Furthermore, Alexander Graham Bell's invention of the telephone created an efficient way of businesses to communicate, which had been an integrated part of many business communications since the 19th century. Societal impact of Alexander Graham Bell: accessibility of communication. As Alexander Graham Bell's invention of the telephone slowly became widespread throughout America and international demographics, communication altered as letters were slowly becoming a thing of the past. As society slowly progressed, especially in America during the start of the Industrial Revolution, many households began communicating with each other via telephone. Sending messages from one person to another had become more efficient, articulate, and easier than before, allowing a shift in how we deliver messages to others today within current society. Political impact: increased international diplomacy. With the implementation of telephones on the rise, many societies tried to integrate this new sense of technology with current foreign affairs and government. As a result, a form of diplomacy known as telephone diplomacy was enacted. Telephone diplomacy was similar to traditional in-person diplomacy, alongside written diplomacy, which employed letters but allowed a sense of transparency and effectiveness in sending letters and messages from one person to another person without interference or delay. As a result of telephone diplomacy, it allowed the close contact of many government officials, such as the head of state, and altered geopolitics due to the increased connections throughout the globe. To be more specific about the inventions that Alexander Graham Bell created, the first invention I would like to talk about is the telephone. The telephone was Alexander Graham Bell's first invention, which had its patent signed and created on March 7, 1876. Bell's original invention consisted of three parts: the diaphragm, magnet, and coil. The diaphragm allowed for the vibration of the sender's voice, which is then sent to a magnet and allows the vibrations to travel, and fills the coil with induced current and sends it to the sender's telephone. Although throughout the years, the design of the telephone has slowly changed, this was the modern version of it at that time. And so, as society progressed more and more and we had more and more resources, we created better telephones which were more easier accessible and used less type of metals. Another important invention of Alexander Graham Bell was the microphone. The microphone was a very important invention during this time, and especially now, because it actually ended up leading to the creation of hearing aids, for example, which induces an amplifier, which is also created due to the microphone, and allows for a sense of transparency when communicating and a better sense of sound for those who cannot hear or are hard of hearing. Another one of Alexander Graham Bell's inventions was also including the prototype microphone in 1876, the same year in which the telephone was created. The microphone worked by amplifying sounds throughout conducting DC or electrical direct current. Alongside that mechanism, audio signals were transmitted by a transmitter which received from many directions, indirectly creating the first transmitter as well. With the creation of these two inventions, Alexander Graham Bell ended up pioneering the way of creation for hearing aids.